The January 14th regular meeting of the Minneapolis Advisory Committee on Housing is now beginning. And with that, we will take the roll to get started.
No, Monday's MLK. Let's.
So when I call your name
Thank you.
for committee members, just please respond with aye. And I'm just going to fix this. Okay. Karina Bowler.
Aye.
Here. You don't. I guess this isn't a vote. Here.
Here.
Just acknowledge that you're here, however you want to do it.
Here.
Bruce Brunner.
Here.
Joey Dobson.
Here.
Colleen Ebinger.
Here.
Jeff Horwich.
Here.
Chloe Jackson.
Here.
Spalinsky Jaycox.
Here.
Queen Kimmons. All right, we'll come back to her. Charlotte Tinsley.
Here.
Liliana Latran Garcia.
Here.
Brenda Marcos.
Here.
David McGee. Come back to David. Lisa Mears.
Here.
Melissa Newman.
Here.
Colleen O'Connor Toberman.
Here.
Maggie Ott.
Here.
Scott Schaefer. Janine Sieja.
Sija.
Sieja, thank you. Cecil Smith.
Here.
Rose Tang.
Here.
Annie Wells.
Here.
Queen Kimmons. David McGee. I think I saw David join. Are you here, David?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear
All
me?
right. Yes, yes. All right. We have a
Can
quorum.
you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you, David. So we have a quorum. With that, I think I'll turn it to Colleen Ebinger and Joey Dobson and Brenda Marcos. I'm not sure who's leading here, but to take the next part.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joey Dobson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a housing policy attorney with Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid. So I'm really excited to have to welcome back our members who were part of the committee for the previous term, and so excited to welcome all of our new members to this committee. Today we'll have a number of procedural pieces, but we'll also have a chance to talk about some of the substance, some of the important work that the committee has been working on and things that we see coming. So welcome, so glad to see and or hear you all today. So our first, and you'll get to hear from the other leaders here, we'll just kind of get through, as Katie described, some of these procedural pieces here. So at this point, are there any motions to adopt today's agenda?
So moved. This is Colleen O'Connor Toberman.
Second,
Thank you.
Bruce Brunner.
Thank you. And at this point, Katie, can you call the roll on the motion to adopt the agenda?
I will. Karina Bowler.
Yes.
Bruce Brunner.
Aye.
Joey Dobson.
Yes.
Colleen Ebinger.
Yes.
Jeff Horwich.
Aye.
Chloe Jackson.
Yes.
Spalinsky Jaycox.
Yes.
Queen Kimmons. Did Queen join us? All right. Charlotte Kinsley.
Yes.
Liliana Latran Garcia.
Aye.
Brenda Marcos.
Aye.
David McGee.
Yes.
Lisa Mears.
Aye.
Melissa Newman.
Aye.
Colleen O'Connor Toberman.
Aye.
Maggie Ott.
Yes.
Janine, oh, I already forgot. Sija?
Sija, like see
Sija.
you later.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Janine Sija. Cecil Smith,
Aye.
Rose Tang,
Yes.
Annie Wells.
Yes.
There are 19 ayes. That carries.
All right, thank you, Katie. And at this point, we'll entertain any motions to approve the minutes of our December meeting that were shared with the meeting materials for today.
So moved. Jeff Orwich.
Thanks, Jeff. Any seconds?
Second, David McGee.
Thanks, David. Katie, can you call the roll on this motion?
Yes. Karina Buller,
Yes.
Bruce Brunner,
Yes.
Joey Dobson,
Yes.
Colleen Ebbinger,
Yes.
Jeff Horwich,
Yes.
Chloe Jackson,
Yes.
Spolinski Jaycox,
Yes.
Queen Kimmons, Charlotte Kinsley,
Yes.
Liliana Latran Garcia,
Yes.
Brenda Marcos,
Yes.
David McGee,
Yes.
Lisa Mears,
Yes.
Melissa Newman,
I'm going to abstain. I haven't had opportunity to review.
thank you. Colleen O'Connor Toberman,
Yes.
Maggie
Yes.
Scott's not here. Janine Sija,
Yes.
Cecil Smith,
Aye.
Rose Tang,
Yes.
Annie Wells.
Yes.
There are 18 ayes and 1 abstention. Those
All
are
right.
adopted.
Thank you very much, everybody. That was a great exercise in our monthly roll call and procedural pieces. So thanks for how smoothly that went. And now I'll pass it over to Colleen, one of our other co-chairs, for the next piece of our agenda.
Great. Thank you, Joey, and it's nice to see all, again, lots of returning faces and lots of new faces as well. So welcome to the committee, welcome to a new year, and we're excited to work together. So this is the point in our agenda where we have an opportunity for public comment. So if you are here on this committee today, if you're not a committee member and you're here to make a public comment, this is the opportunity to do so. Just as a reminder, this is an advisory committee, so we're not a decision-making committee, but rather we advise the city council, the mayor's office in the city, as to things that are going on in the community that they want to hear about and related to housing. So to the extent possible, we ask that your comments, that any public comments be directed towards agenda items that are on our agenda today. And the public comment is limited to about 1 minute per person. So if you want to make a public comment, you push *6 to unmute yourself. Or actually, Katie, I'm not sure that you haven't muted people yet today, right? So
No.
I think you might be able to just speak, but please say your full name, and then you can go ahead and make a public comment. So is there anyone on the phone right now who would like to make a public comment?
Could I start us off?
Yes. Thank you. Can you please state your name?
Yep, my name is Andrew. I'm from the 9th Ward. Okay, look, in 2017, Jacob Fry committed to ending homelessness in 5 years, and numbers have only increased since then. Promises don't end homelessness. Incentives and weak reforms don't end homelessness. We can't evict and sweep our way out of homelessness during a pandemic. And race and wealth disparities don't magically disappear with more production of housing. Your work is to support and expand deeper systemic interventions and transformative changes to the housing market itself. You need to stop the white corporate real estate forces who have extracted the most profit and wealth from housing inequality and who continue to profit to this day. You need to center, preference, allow leadership from, and reverse the exploitation of the unhoused and of renters of color who are facing displacement every day. That means policies like universal 3% rent control, an openly assignable tenant opportunity to purchase, banning bulk corporate sales of property, and more eviction protections. Real families, real people, and most of all, our kids bear the brunt of this housing, health, and economic crisis. They're counting on you to help advise on reversing the very intended consequences of profit-based market displacement. Thanks all. I look forward to your allyship and especially your action this year.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. And just for the record, what was your last name, Andrew?
Falstrom.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else on the line who would like to give a comment? Anyone who would like to give a public comment, this is the opportunity to do so. All right, I know sometimes it takes a second to get off mute in case you're talking, so just one last chance. If there's anyone who would like to give a public comment, please go ahead and state your name.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Amina Warsami.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today. What is your comment?
My comment has to do with help with the rental payment. And since I live in subsidized housing, I'm not eligible to get the rental assistance from all the organization which is helping with the pandemic assistance rental. And they say since you live in public housing, you're not eligible. I did with the city of Minneapolis. I did with African Credit Program. And after doing all the paperwork and everything, I'm told I'm not eligible because I live in subsidized housing. And by the end of the month, if I don't pay, then I'll be on the street.
So we can give a couple of resources. Generally, just we're not doing a lot of response, but I do want to make sure to give you a couple of resources to make sure you have that. So a couple of things. One, I mean, Joey, you might want to just jump in as an attorney and talk about the eviction moratorium. And then there are some sources of additional funding. I don't know every single one of them. And you are right that some of the federal stimulus and some of the government dollars that were available through a lot of programs did limit those with subsidized housing because the idea was there was already some assistance. So I know they were trying to stretch that. But perhaps we could we either take your name or we could give you a phone number from one of the Minneapolis staff people to call, and we can try to get you connected with others who might be able to give some assistance. Kelly or Katie, would you be willing to give your phone numbers or one of yours?
Yeah, I can give my phone number. I'm not sure if Kelly's on the line.
Okay.
Are you ready to take that down?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I'm on the line, Katie, but I think you're probably a better resource on this one. So, but I'd be happy to follow up as well. Why don't we give them your number, Katie, first? And
Sure.
We'll take the number.
Yeah. It's 612 364 4657.
And your name was?
It's Katie. My last name's Topinka.
Katie Pakapinga. Okay.
Yep. Yes. If you call me, I can get you connected to like legal aid and then any other resources that we may be aware of. So yes, please do call.
And then, great. And then Joey, do you want to just give a quick update here on the eviction moratorium and just legal options?
Sure, absolutely. And thanks, Amina, for bringing up those concerns about access to the various rental assistance programs that are out there right now. And yeah, like Colleen mentioned, just wanted to make sure you were aware that right now eviction cases for not paying rent are on pause. Your landlord, even if it's public housing, can't kick people out of their homes right now and go through that court process if the sole issue is they can't afford their rent right now. There are some exceptions. There are some evictions that are moving forward for other things right now. But I would be happy to consult with you directly. Katie, obviously feel free to either give my direct information to Amina or to the legal aid intake line. So thanks for being here. And it looks like our member from Minnesota Public Housing Authority has a response to Amina. So Jeff, if you want to share now too.
Yes.
Sure, I can provide a quick update on that. And yeah, it's in fact, public housing is as committed, if not more committed than anybody, I think, to making sure that people can remain in their homes as long as possible. So, so believe me, it's our interest is to figure out how we can work out agreements so people can stay. I did want to give a brief update on that because, yeah, Colleen is right that the initial rounds of rental assistance that we've seen have excluded people who have other forms of subsidy on the logic that your rental payment will go down if you have an income loss or if you have extra childcare expenses, those sorts of things. And that is still the case. So that'd be the first thing, is to make absolutely sure that you've been in touch with the housing authority to make any adjustments. But the other part is that Minneapolis is about to get its piece of the next round of rental assistance that Congress passed at the end of the year. I think about $25 million is heading to the city of Minneapolis. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's about it. It's a decent amount of money. The city will be administering that in some form or fashion. The details are still being worked out. But this question about eligibility for people who have other forms of subsidy is undetermined at this time. So a lot of people, a lot of housing authorities all over the country are trying to get the Treasury Department to articulate its interpretation of what is written in the statute, which does not appear, in our view, to eliminate people with other forms of subsidy from eligibility if they need it. If they've exhausted the other ability of, your public housing subsidy to help, in our view, you should be eligible for the program. So that guidance is going to flow to the state and then down to the city. And we're hoping that the right decision gets made and that there is a path for you and others, probably at some point in February, we think is the timing, to be able to have access to that to help if you are behind on rent payments. So I thought that update would be maybe of interest to the whole committee, since I think we talked about this last time as well.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff and Joey and Katie and Amina. Thank you very much for your call. And I hope that you can get in touch with Katie, and then we'll be able to, hopefully some people will be able to help you out. So thank you so much for calling in today.
Thank you. Before I hang up, there's another comment I wanted to make, if it's okay with you.
We do try to limit it. Is it quite brief?
Pardon?
Can you make it pretty quick? Just because we're trying to limit each person. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, well. Okay. Since this is my first time, maybe the second time that I called the number for the housing committee meeting, advisory meeting. So when you start the meeting at the beginning, is there a way maybe to introduce what type of meeting is going on? What are the issues, or what is the agenda about? Because otherwise I'm clueless to know what is going on. That's all.
So the agenda for each meeting is posted on the city's website.
Okay.
And so that is the best place to go. And it's always posted several days beforehand. And I don't have, Katie, do you have the link offhand?
Yeah, it's on the city's legislative, it's called LIMS. Let me just find, it's just LIMS, LIMS .minneapolismn.gov. So if you go to that website, you can find it through there on the calendar. But when you call me, I can also walk you through this a little bit more closely to help to show you where it is.
Thank you for your time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good luck.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So that closes our public comment period, and I'm now going to hand it over to Brenda, who is going to introduce Councilmember Gordon.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brenda, and I'm Vice Chair. If Councilman Gordon is on the line, I would really appreciate everybody giving him a warm welcome, because he's an awesome guy. Councilman Gordon, are you there?
I'm here. Yeah, thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to come and celebrate this first meeting with you all. It's great to see so many people returning for more. Already been on the committee. Also see some new faces here. Folks I know from other areas of the city and I've worked with on some other issues. This is a really difficult time for the city of Minneapolis, especially in terms of the housing crisis. We really need to be all hands on deck to make a difference. And it's as challenging as that is, it also means we have a great opportunity here. And I think with this year, we're going to see more interest and more willingness to make more changes than we've ever seen before. Years ago, it was difficult to get anybody looking at how we could open up emergency shelters. They were afraid of it and they wanted bigger spacing requirements. More recently, when we amended our emergency shelter ordinance to make it more possible to do more shelters, people throughout the city celebrated. They see the need for this like we never have seen it before, and the need for flexibility and the need for innovation. We today, me and some of my colleagues just announced a tenant opportunity to purchase effort that we're coming forward with, and also a rent stabilization effort. So these will be big issues that you all can help us figure out how to do right as we move forward. The rent stabilization will take a few years because we need a vote from the public because of state preemptions that require that. But the tenant opportunity to purchase, that's something coming up soon too. We're working on other things too, like bringing back rooming houses to the city so we can now have new single room occupancy rooming houses as a solution to this problem to create real affordable and quality housing for folks. I want you to know that my door is always open. You've also got my right-hand guy, Robin Garwood, who attends all of these meetings, and he's a good strategic thinker. He's going to have good advice about how to get your issues brought forward to the council to pay attention to them. So I don't want you just to wait for the ideas to come from the council and the policies, but it's really important too that you figure out what you think the city should be doing too and come up with ideas about ways to improve. You're quite an eclectic group. You're folks from all different areas of the housing spectrum. So that's going to be particularly challenging to listen to one another, to be open-minded with each other, and to help build the best advice that can come forward to us. You kind of do a service for the council and I think for the community by doing that for us and bringing those perspectives to the table. And I really appreciate that. Don't hesitate to reach out to me if you ever have any ideas or an initiative you'd like to bring forward. And I look forward to seeing some amazing work from all of you this year.
Did you raise your hand, Colleen? Someone had raised their hand. Let me look.
This is Colleen. Sorry, that was an accident. I think I put it back down.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Does anybody have any questions for Councilman Gordon? Well, I really appreciate you joining the meeting and giving us.
Brenda.
You do? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
So looking today, Councilmember Gordon, at the briefing docs regarding rent stabilization, it appears that within the next month there's going to have to be a council vote on the charter amendment in order to get to the commission in a timely fashion. Is that true?
That's correct.
So the drafting of the ordinance is going to happen very quickly. Or the drafting of the charter amendment, I should say, is going to happen very quickly.
Yes. I think it's already underway. And it's not going to be that lengthy. It's just going to be a charter amendment that would give the authority to the city to implement a rent stabilization.
And is there going to be a policy discussion around the charter amendment and community engagement on that, or it's just going to happen?
There has been there'll be a study session on it coming up at the end of the month, and then there'll also be a public hearing. So okay. There'll be that. It's fairly on a fairly fast track because it has to. The Charter Commission has a certain period of time they can review it. And we want to make sure to give them all the time that they need.
That's all the questions I had.
Thank you, Cecil.
I have a,
Is
what
anybody
is the
else?
timeline? Can you remind the timeline of the report from the council has contracted for?
So I don't have the dates right in front of me. We got a preliminary report back. Some council members did, and just this week. But the study session will be coming up near the end of January. Robin, do you know the date?
Yeah, we think that it's going to be in late February.
Okay, sorry.
One of the dates that we've got that we're looking at is February 23rd for a study session, but that hasn't been completely set yet. But sometime in late February, around the same time that the public hearing would be. And just to be clear, Cecil, the charter amendment is going to be pretty minimal. It's not going to have any of the policy details. It just sets up the process by which a rent stabilization policy can be adopted later on.
Yeah, I understand that, but there is a policy around initiative and referendum, and if that's a good thing for the city.
Yep, that's true. Yep.
Okay, I believe David McGee had raised his hand too.
Well, I was just wondering if this committee would be able to weigh in at all on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Right now, the charter amendment we're looking at would provide two options for getting a rent stabilization. One could be an initiative from citizens, and the other would be it would empower the city council to pass an ordinance on their own. So we're kind of keeping the options open right now about how we could get there.
Did you have anything else, David?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jody, you raised your hand.
Joey, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry. I just wanted to share, as a co-chair, at least of the previous term, who's been helping set agendas, we can absolutely make time on our February agenda. I believe our meeting is at least tentatively planned for February to be February 11th, which would be in advance of any vote or even advance of the study session. So we'll certainly talk and make an effort to make sure that our committee has as much of a chance as possible to weigh in.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for Councilman Gordon?
Looks like Bruce may.
Okay, Bruce?
Councilman Gordon, what did you announce today on the TOPA piece?
That we're moving forward on it. Robin, what did, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more.
So TOPA is already underway. I don't know that there's anything more that we have done on that since we got the report from LISC and their partner last month. But we are also giving notice of intent tomorrow on eviction protections. So St. Paul recently passed a just cause eviction ordinance, and St. Louis Park recently enacted a pay or quit or pre-eviction notification ordinance. And so we're giving notice tomorrow on putting both of those ideas forward as well.
So you didn't choose a pathway of the alternatives that were presented at this point?
Not
That's
yet.
right. Not yet.
I wonder also, if you would, and Robin just explaining that the notice of intent to introduce is not necessarily language right in front of it, but it really is sort of a heads up that this is a conversation that we want to have. I just think that might help people understand that that means that we have a starting point and a longer time to sort of discuss, although I know there's been a lot of discussion on these already, so.
Yeah, and last year, or maybe it was the year before, for the beginning of the term for our last committee, we did have Casey Carl come and do an overview of the city's legislative process. And we talked about doing that for today, couldn't get it on the agenda, but we can certainly do that for this group as well. I think it was pretty helpful just to understand how the process works for passing ordinances in the city.
Because it can become complicated to understand when you're not in that role. Just like with me being a normal person, it's very complicated sometimes to understand it. Do we have any more questions? No? All right, well, I really want to appreciate you, Councilman Gordon, for being here today and sharing your experience with us. And I can't wait to talk more with you about the SROs, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Are we going to Joey next on who's next to introduce, or is it Katie?
I think we can go straight to Katie. Yeah, thanks, Brenda.
Yeah, thanks. And just to note, I know on the agenda, Mayor Fry is also going to be stopping in the meeting to give a welcome to the group as well. So once he is here, we will let him talk, but that is still coming on the agenda for those of you who had seen that there. So yes, I just had a couple of announcements for the group on some housekeeping things. So one is, as we've already mentioned, Joey, Colleen, and Brenda were our co-chairs last year for the committee. And so they have agreed to continue kind of doing this until we select leadership for the new committee. So we will be officially adopting new committee leadership. And so we actually didn't decide, I guess, if we should be having people kind of put their name forward in February and then voting on it in March, or if we just want to do it in February. But I guess maybe this, others can chime in on what they think the best process is. But if you are interested in helping to be a leader for the meeting, please consider that. And just so you know, and then maybe Brenda, Joey, or Colleen can talk a little bit more about like what the time commitment is like. But the leadership team does help staff set the agendas for every meeting. So play a role in deciding what topics the committee should be discussing and helping kind of make sure that priorities of committee members are being addressed. And then the leadership team also will give help with the annual report that this committee gives to council and may present that to council. And then some other things may be like emailing comments that the committee has agreed upon on different policies, emailing those or presenting them to the council in some way or another. So that's kind of the role of the leadership team. I think the bulk of it is really helping to set the agendas. And then, of course, obviously running the meeting itself. So I don't know if any of the leaders want to add to that or talk a little bit about the time commitment. And then obviously maybe we can land on the process, whether we're going to do a vote in February or have people put their names forward in February and do a vote in March.
This is Joey. I will just say, correct me, Brenda and Colleen, if you think this is misstating it. Typically, as Katie said, the leadership team, along with the staff who help with all the organizational pieces of this committee, meet typically at least once, sometimes twice between each monthly meeting. Usually we meet shortly after the meeting to kind of get anything we agreed to do in the meeting off and running. Put anything together, draft anything. And then sometimes we'll meet one more time briefly right before a meeting just to make sure we're on the same page and we have the plan set. So that's kind of the time commitment. Sometimes there's a little bit of drafting or a little bit of work otherwise, but that's a typical month, I would say. And maybe I would suggest it is on our agenda for later this meeting to review our bylaws. So that people sort of know what we've agreed to as a committee for our structure. you'll see that we intentionally left them somewhat vague or open in a few spaces, including, for example, we didn't delineate the exact number of leaders. It doesn't have to be co-chairs. It could be, a chair and a vice chair. It could be 3 co-chairs. So I would maybe suggest, as we're discussing bylaws later in this meeting today, at that point, once we know kind of what the rules are, then we can decide how we want to go about selecting the next term's leadership.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. So the other announcement I just wanted to make here is that everyone, so thank you all for very quickly getting your oath of office done this week. Really appreciate that. The other thing that every member is required to do is ethics training. Now, I will let I believe all of the returning members are okay right now. I will verify that and send out an email, but the ethics training is good for either 3 or 4 years. So all of you returning members should be, I don't think you're going to have to retake it right now, but the new members will have to do it. It's fairly quick. It's an online course. And then there's just a little certificate you have to fill out at the end. And I think at least 1 or 2 people have already done it. So thank you for doing that. I will send some email instructions out about that. But just if you can do that as soon as you have the chance to do it. And I'll also there's some tricky stuff with the system. At the end, you have to select which committee you're part of, and our committee is not listed because this was created before our committee existed, and they haven't updated it since then. So you have to say you're a guest. So I will put that in an email to you too, so you don't have to remember that, but just a heads up on that. So that's all I wanted to say. I think I'm not sure we have a strict deadline on the ethics training, but please just do it as quickly as you can. I think it takes less than a half hour. From what I recall. And then again, for returning members, I will send you an update on your status, but I believe you'll all be good for at least this year. So that was it for my announcements.
All right, thanks, Katie. So I feel like we've done a lot of businessy things in the 40 minutes, and I haven't even gotten to meet all of you really yet. So this is the time we set aside time in our agenda today for us, for those of us who don't know each other, to get to know one another. So now at this point, what we'll go around. I'll probably just go in alphabetical order because it's easiest. That's the way we're listed on the agenda. And at this time, we'd welcome you to share your name. I would welcome you to share your pronouns, if you are affiliated with an organization or a business entity, feel free to share that. And then just share either why you wanted to join this committee or what you're looking forward to in this committee's work. So Karina, I'm going to put you on the spot since you're first alphabetically. So Karina, can you introduce yourself to the crew?
Hello all. My name is Karina Bowler, and I am a Minneapolis resident. I'm an organizer, a community organizer. I'm a tenant leader. I sit on a organization in DC for Save Our Homes. I love the work of housing. I love the challenges that comes along with it. My commitment is aimed to keep people housed and hold those accountable. And I want to see this committee do more to that matter with helping residents stay housed and holding those accountable. And yeah, that's about all for me.
Thanks so much, Karina. And I would just, another reminder that maybe Katie, you can be looking to make sure when the mayor does arrive that we're alerted to that fact. So when the mayor arrives, we'll pause our committee member introductions again and hear from our mayor. So next, alphabetically, Bruce Brunner, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Bruce Brunner. I'm an advocate for stable homes, stable schools program, and for home ownership as a pathway to building housing security. I advocate with the city to allow more housing options for the missing middle and encourage increased density as we don't have enough places for people to live. I teach individuals and families how to get into home ownership through buying duplexes and triplexes as the most affordable option to renting. I'm a general contractor. who builds, renovates, and owns duplexes and triplexes to create safe, healthy places to live.
Great, thank you so much, Bruce. And maybe, I don't know, Kalina, I guess I'll just throw us in the alphabetical mix and go ahead and continue. So again, I'll introduce myself again, Joey Dobson. I use she, her pronouns. I am a housing attorney with Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid. I've been with Legal Aid doing all of our eviction defense work. Our housing team at Legal Aid represents renters in eviction cases, housing discrimination cases, other subsidy issues, other landlord-tenant issues. Legal Aid, and it looks like the mayor is with us, so welcome. We'll pause our group introductions now and hear from Mayor Fry. So Mayor Fry, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be with our housing committee. We have some returning and some new members with us today. So thanks so much for being here.
You got it. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me, and second of all, for your service. For those that are returning, we greatly appreciate you doing another term. And for those that are just starting, let me just emphasize how important this work is and how much we appreciate your service here. Affordable housing has been, is now, and will continue to be my #1 priority. That is my passion. That is the reason that I got into public service. And what I so appreciate about this group is the level and caliber of talent that we have on here. Housing is not a simplistic issue. If you're really going to confront it, you have to be able to approach it in terms of the funding mechanisms, in terms of the supply, in terms of the deep and level of affordability, in terms of the finding, giving people who are experiencing homelessness that next rung on the ladder to pull themselves out. And, I know I'm preaching to the choir here a little bit, but I think it is perhaps the most foundational and tangible element of equity. You can't possibly start talking about taking the next step until you have a stable home. You can't possibly start talking about getting a job or going down a specific route that will ultimately benefit your life and your community until you have a safe place to rest your head at the night, where you can rest your head on the pillow and rejuvenate for the next day. That is so foundational to everything. Not to mention where and how we place that housing in the city has dramatic impacts as well. I'm a believer in beautifully diverse neighborhoods, diversity in terms of use, diversity in terms of race and ethnicity, diversity in terms of housing options, and all of those issues are intrinsically linked. So the work that I understand you all are doing is finding ways to just accomplish that vision of inclusivity and of that foundational element of housing. So again, I'm if you have any questions, I'm certainly happy to answer. But the truth is that the great answers are really going to be coming from you in these coming months. So I appreciate staff and all those that have been willing to really step up and to inform the policy development that we'll move forward on. And what I can tell you is that this is not like a faux committee where you're going to come forward with a bunch of recommendations and it'll go into a binder and sit on the shelf somewhere in the basement. That is not this. The caliber of people here means that we're going to be able to take your recommendations and figure out how to implement them. And so this is real. You are doing the policy work. We're going to be collaborating, working hand in hand. And so thank you. I greatly appreciate this work, and it's more important now than ever.
Thank you again so much, Mayor, for being with us today and for your prioritization of housing. One quick follow-up I have as a returning member of this committee. Do you have any guidance for us in sort of the how we specifically provide to you and your office the most meaningful recommendations, feedback, input? We've done, we've commented on a number of proposed ordinances and a number of comments to council. And I know folks from your office join this meeting regularly as well and are, have their finger on the pulse of what we're talking about. If you have any other comments about how best we can provide meaningful serve in our advisory role to the mayor's office, that would be welcome.
Well, I would say two things. One, I would like to, if you come forward with, substantial policy recommendations, I'd actually like to have a direct meeting with you. One, but two, on the day-to-day work that you're doing, I know Andrea Inouye is here right now, and she's an extraordinary member of our staff, and she briefs me very, very regularly on the work that you're doing. So. I think a both-end approach there, where you're working regularly with Andrea, and we also have some FaceTime together where we can go over and kind of have that banter back and forth. And by the way, I always like to kind of have the discussion because I feel like you ultimately arrive at a better place because of it. So the back and forth and devil's advocacy is often helpful to me, just to better understand how it is that you're coming to the recommendations that you have.
Great, thanks so much. That's really helpful, and I appreciate the resources you dedicate with having Andrea with us. It's been really helpful on a number of occasions. I want to be respectful of your time, but if any of the committee members have a question or two, if you have a moment, if folks either want to chime in, unmute yourself, or use the raise hand function. Liliana, go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor. My name is Liliana Litran Garcia from CLUS, Comunidades Latinas Unidas en Servicio. And I just want to take the time and the opportunity to thank you for the GAP program that you implemented when the pandemic happened. As you know, our Latino community was tremendously affected by the pandemic. And the assistance that you provide really helped many, many families to avoid homelessness. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the program and your efforts to assist every member of our community.
Well, Liliana, let me actually divert that thanks right back to you, because we would not have been able to execute that GAP program without the assistance of you and CLUS. And one of the foundational and important elements that we had when we established the GAP program was to make sure that it wasn't restricted based on citizenship or documentation status. As we well know, it's oftentimes, unless you have that connection with organizations like CLUS, it's difficult to have a direct connection and find the individuals that need this help the most. And we needed to get the funding out, as you know, in a fairly quick manner, both because of the requirements set by, well, us and soon to be the feds, but also just to help, because I think that partnership and the partnership with so many of you all is going to continue, because I see this being a more critical issue, especially if any eviction moratorium is lifted, which obviously we all should be very, very concerned about.
Thanks, Mayor and Liliana. Chloe Jackson, you have your hand up?
Yes, Mayor, I just have a question. Will you advocate for letting the people vote on rent stabilization?
Say that again one more time, Chloe.
Will you advocate for letting the people vote on rent stabilization and any other policies that's going to affect renters?
So this, I believe, involves a notice of introduction that just came forward today. And the honest truth is that I have not even read it yet. And so, I before I take any position, I do my due diligence and I read through the policy. As a general rule in the past, I have not supported rent control, because the data has spoken pretty clear that it actually has the opposite impact. Now, that doesn't mean that that's what's in this policy, and so I'm not going to pass any judgments at all before I actually read the policy. In the past, the data that we've seen is that one of two things ends up happening. Either one, the landlord stops keeping the premises in a habitable condition, or two, they decide that they don't want to do residential anymore, and it reduces the supply and thus increases the price. And so the last thing that we want to do is gentrify areas, because landlords have decided to flip the spaces, put granite countertops in, and gentrify whole corridors. We don't want that. I'm not at all saying that's what this policy does, because I haven't read the policy. But I want to see what the policy says first before I take any position. But it is a very fair question.
Thank you, but I also want to just let you know that we do need these things, and no one should be extracting profits off of housing. And landlords are already doing what you're saying when it comes to gentrification of neighborhoods anyway.
Yep. True. That is accurate. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll read it, and then I can get you an honest and straightforward response.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Chloe, for that question, and thanks, Mayor, for your answer. Are there any other questions here while we have our mayor joined with us today?
Yes, Katie, it's Karina speaking.
Go for it, Karina.
Hey, Mayor Fry, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm still looking forward to that call through that email chain that we have going on. Yep. And two, I want to talk about the rent programs for the rental assistance. Yep. Families are looking for help doing the rental assistance, and there's a caller that called on the line that spoke about she applied for the rental programs, but she's excluded because she lives in public housing. By her living in public housing, and I believe the last time she was working at the time, when she was working at the time and she lost her job, if she applies for unemployment and she lives in public housing, once she gets that rent decreased, if she applies for the unemployment, her rent goes right back up. So if the rental assistance programs are out there and they're being submitted and documented, and whoever is, helping to write these policies, I don't think you guys are thinking about the people who need the help the most. And that's the words you just recently said. People that need the help the most are being pushed out. They're not being heard because I'm a renter myself, and I hear this from everyone. And so I want to know, is there another way that we could do this? Because even if they live in public housing or subsidized housing, they do work. They're just not sitting home, but they're not getting the help because of their circumstances of living in public housing or subsidized housing or having Section 8. But they are working citizens. So how can we help them? Because eventually that's going to put her out. She doesn't come up with the money by the end of the month, and she's on the street. I hope she doesn't have kids, and if she do, she didn't mention it. But how can we help that? Because we're going to put more people on the street because of the policies of these documents that's getting written.
Karina, thank you for the question. Hear you entirely. I just had a conversation yesterday with the director of MPHA at Abdi Warsami, and we were actually talking about this issue which is, how MPHA or public housing in general is often excluded from some of these city and state and federal, for that matter, funding sources. So you raise a really good point. And I think a lot of it comes back to the fact that, we have not properly funded public housing since the 80s. And by the way, both Democrat and Republican, administrations are to blame. We're all to blame. The funding that we have seen go to public housing has been diminished and is not at all sustainable right now. I am hopeful that we'll get a shift in, the new administration, but I think we're all going to have to be strong advocates to ultimately make that happen. And with respect to the work the city can do, we're going to be looking at additional strategies where we can have, MPHA specific or monies that MPHA can hit and take into account so that the items that you're talking about don't happen. I agree with you entirely.
Yeah. And then just to add, there's 19 million people or more a day that's applying for unemployment. And so we have to think about the elderly that live in these homes, even in the mortgage homes, that's applying for these assistants that do work. We would love to have some sort of property tax freeze or give them a surplus because of the property taxes that are getting higher. And we need to help the people. There's a lot of people suffering. And I keep hearing, and seeing more condos being built. I keep hearing, hey, let's get people in, to buy the American dream a home. I'm all for buying a home. I can't wait to do mine. But during this pandemic, we have to make sure we're looking out for people because people are losing their jobs. That got, jobs that they once loved, but some of these jobs are going away during the pandemic. So we just have to make sure that we are really helping the people. Whether it's buying a home, let's make sure we're keeping that home for that particular family. Let's make sure we're getting the folks off the streets. Let's make sure we're helping mental illness. Let's make sure we're helping the poor community. Let's make sure we're making sure funds is going into the Black community, because it's not. So I thank you for your time, Mayor, and I still look forward to our phone call. Thanks, and have a great day.
I thank you. I thank you, and feel free, Andrea, if you could coordinate on the phone call side of things. And thank you all. I actually have to jump to the next meeting right now. But thank you. Thank you for your work. Appreciate you really digging in on these issues. It makes a huge difference to a whole lot of people. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Mayor Fry. And Andrea, I do see your hand up now. Do you want to go ahead and chime in?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a piece of detail to Karina's question and comment about the exclusion of public housing and voucher holders to these resources. And as the mayor said, we recently had a great conversation with Executive Director Warsami about the need that's there. And we are very supportive of including public housing and voucher holders in the next round of emergency assistance that's coming from the federal government. We're waiting on some guidance from the federal government about whether or not we'll be allowed to do that. But if we are allowed, we will. That is our goal, and we would like to include folks in that resource, because we know that that is definitely a need that's in community. We've heard that loud and clear.
Thank you, Andrea.
All right. It was great to be able to hear from Councilmember Gordon and the mayor, and I still am excited to meet the rest of you all. So we'll go back to our introductions phase. I know I was in the midst of introducing myself. I've already talked plenty today, but just wanted to remind folks, I'm from Legal Aid. I'm a renter's attorney. My current role is focused mostly on housing policy at the state level and also at the city and county level. So without more there, feel free to reach out if you ever. I would be happy to meet with anyone one-on-one and get to know you better. But that's me. And we'll move on in our introductions to Colleen Ebbinger.
Hi, everyone. Nice again to see and meet many of you. So I'm Vice President of the Family Housing Fund. And so we are an organization focused on the 7-county metro area and building a strong affordable housing system, and affordable housing really broadly defined. So that includes everything from public housing to NOAA housing, naturally occurring affordable housing, to fair rental and habitable housing, all the way to home ownership. So we've been doing a lot of work around eviction prevention, working with courts in the region, where we've also launched a building equity program focused on increasing people of color's ownership in duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes as a way to both secure more homeownership, but also reduce racial disparities in wealth. And I also am a landlord. My husband and I own a couple of duplexes and self-manage those. So I'm excited to be here again today and have been really enjoying being part of this committee for the last 2 years.
Thanks, Colleen. Go ahead, Jeff Horwich.
Sure. I'm the Director of Policy and Communications for the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, and I am pleased and honored to fill MPHA's designated seat on this committee. It is a wonderful thing that MPHA is included on this committee, and entirely appropriate. We feel we sit at a really pivotal place in the city's housing continuum as permanent, deeply affordable housing, often providing a backstop and a safety net for people who struggle to find and afford a place to live in the private market. Sorry for my cat. And more stable and safe place for people who otherwise might be in the shelter system. We serve, all in all, more than 26,000 people in the city of Minneapolis across our Section 8 programs and MPHA owned and operated housing. I think it's kind of interesting. As a governmental entity, we sit in a really kind of a weird space, like all housing authorities do. We administer federal subsidies, and we are by and large federally funded. The pieces of us that are not federally funded are tenant rent payments are a portion of what supports what we do. And we do have some on and off and specialized city and state funding. that is becoming increasingly valuable and important as time goes on for the reasons that the mayor articulated. But we administer federal subsidies. We are a state chartered entity, so we're subject to state law in a number of important ways to our work. And we are very closely tied to the city. Our board is appointed by the mayor and the city council. Our executive director is confirmed by the council. And we've got a lot of terrific and fairly recent wonderful joint projects with the city. It's a really exciting time for collaboration between us as this sort of pseudo-independent entity and the city coming together to address some of our challenges. One that Bruce mentioned is the Stable Home, Stable Schools program, which we're really excited has been made permanent, part of the city budget. There's nothing else like that in the country where the city has come together with the housing authority to provide substantial funding to a program we could administer with the school system, and it's just one of the wonderful things that has come out of conversations with the city in recent years. The city has more than $2 million in a huge renovation that we're undertaking right now at the Elliott Twins that will be finished this summer and really exciting to roll out to the community, and lots of other conversations going on as well. So it is, I think, in my 4.5 years here, really. We've been moving toward a high point in our work with the city, and really appreciate the support of the mayor and the support of the folks on this committee. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Chloe Jackson.
Hi, my name is Chloe. My pronouns are she, her. I am a tenant. I'm a renter in Minneapolis. I'm an organizer. I work with Renters United for Justice. I'm also on the board of the corporate neighborhood. So I do a lot with tenants, and I'm excited to be here and see what kind of changes can be made and make sure that our tenants are in the forefront of these things.
Thanks, Chloe. Welcome. Spolinski, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Spolinski Jaycox. I work currently for Metro Transit. In my previous life, I did a lot of affordable housing. I've worked for Minneapolis Public Housing, St. Paul Public Housing, and various nonprofits, PPL, NERC, and Wilder Foundation. And I recently purchased a home in Minneapolis, so I've been back in the city probably about 14 months, and decided to get involved because of the ordeal I went through when purchasing my home. Kind of was disappointed and thought, well, if I want to make a difference, I need to be involved in where decisions are made, where developers and contractors are vetted to make sure that they're building homes that not only are affordable, but structurally are done properly as well. I have a passion for the challenged populations. That would be ex-felons, homeless, vets, because those are the people that have the hardest time finding rental. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to be part of this team, and hopefully some changes can be made that will make a difference. And, you know, seeing Minneapolis change, because I grew up in Minneapolis, I'm kind of disappointed in what I see now as the housing industry, and hopefully we can get it back to where it really should be, because housing is a right everybody should have, and that shouldn't be something you're worried about. And unfortunately, that is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Spolinski, for that introduction and for being with us today. And welcome back to the city of Minneapolis not too long ago. All right, we'll move on. Katie, did Queen join? Do you know? Queen, are you here? I don't think Queen is here. So we'll move on to Charlotte.
Queen's here. She's here. Queen is
here. Oh, Queen's here. Sorry, Queen.
Queen is in the room.
Yes. I go by the pronouns of she, her, and let's see. You want my introduction? The executive director of One Family, One Community. We work with people who have housing instability. You know, we do a lot of organizing at the capital level. Let's see. Yeah, and we get people civically engaged about housing. The word felony holds too much power, so we already understand that on many different levels. So glad to be back. Got my sworn oath to come in today, And I'm just looking forward for us to really put some stuff together and move some mountains, because that's what power does. All right. Thank you.
Woo, awesome. Queen, you're giving me chills. So glad you're here. All right, next, Charlotte. Welcome.
Thank you. Charlotte Kinsley. I am the Homeless and Highly Mobile Manager for Minneapolis Public Schools, and I'm just really honored to be holding that spot for Minneapolis Public Schools on this committee. We last year identified over 2,300 students who are experiencing homelessness. So I come to this work with, I've been working in family shelter, permanent supportive housing, and now this role at MPS within Minneapolis for the past 20 years. So I come with I guess just a passion. I agree with you, Spolinski, around housing is a right, and we need to get to that for, especially for our young people. The impact for students on their education when they're experiencing homelessness is dramatic. And so appreciate being part of a group that's committed to making sure that our residents have housing.
Thanks so much, Charlotte. Thanks for being here. All right, Liliana, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Liliana Letran Garcia. I am the Director of Economic Empowerment Division for CLUS. My pronouns are she and her. One of the subdivisions of the economic empowerment for CLUS is housing. We do provide homelessness prevention, rental counsel, pre-purchase counseling, foreclosure prevention counseling to many families, mostly Latino families that live not only here in the Twin Cities, but in greater Minnesota. During the pandemic, like I shared previously with the mayor, our Latino community was tremendously affected by this pandemic, which put many, many families at the risk of being homeless. The pandemic not only affected them financially, but our population, our community is one of the highest in mortality because of this pandemic. With our collaboration with the city of Minneapolis, with the city of St. Paul, with private organizations like FHF, Paulette Foundation, Otto Bremer, we have been able to provide not only city, county, state sponsored programs, but also private funding to kind of meet the gap of the situations that we just heard. If they're in public housing and if they don't qualify for the more mainstream programs, we have then private funding that we could assist these families. Housing, affordable housing is a real problem. I think many organizations have been putting the red flag for 2-3 years ago, and now we are here. And I am so excited to be part of this group to come up with solutions, create, a balance and win-win situation for, the tenants, the landlords, the homeowners, and the lending companies to try to come up with solutions and make sure that people can keep their housing unit. So again, thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to work with all of you.
Thanks for being here, Liliana. Brenda, Marcos, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Brenda Marcos, and I'm considered chronic homelessness, but I've been very fortunate where I have permanent housing for the last 14 months. So this is I'm very passionate about the unhoused and the unsheltered individuals because I've been there. I know what it's like to have dirty, wet socks on, to have your dirty clothes on. You have to turn them inside out to walk because your clothes are dirty. I know what it's like to sleep under a bridge in a doorway of a business on Lake Street with no place to live. So I'm very passionate about this. And when I talk about this, you can hear it in my voice, and I do get upset sometimes. It's only because I'm passionate about what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm a full-time college student. My goal is to work in housing policy because I do believe that in housing policy, when you make the policy changes, everything trickles down to where it will help everybody else. We need outreach, yes, because I do a lot of outreach. But where changes happen is at the policy level, the government level, the legislation level. And I am passionate enough to where I graduate this summer. Due to COVID-19, I was supposed to graduate this spring, but that's okay. I'm gonna, I'm gonna make changes. I'm already trying to make changes. And sometimes it feels like I'm beating my head up against the wall. But one thing about me, I never give up on anything. I will continue to beat my head against that wall until I get someone to hear me, answer me, and let's move forward with the issue that I'm trying to accomplish here. Because all these individuals in like the encampments is being in, okay, we're gonna come back here because I'm already getting upset. I know what it feels like to sleep in a tent. I know what it feels like to sleep with no home. And I even sent out a challenge to the city council to sleep in a tent one night and let them feel what it feels like. Because, now I'm very grateful that I can come home, shut my door, lock it. I wake up in a warm bed. I have a shower. I can take a shower. I'm very grateful about these things. And my passion is to get everybody housed and out of these tents, off of these streets, because it is a human right to have safe, affordable housing. And not just affordable housing, it needs to be deeply affordable housing, because that's a big difference. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Brenda.
Yeah, congrats, Brenda. Thanks for being here. All right, David McGee, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, congratulations, Brenda. Wow, so it's been 2 years. This is my second term on this committee, and I watched you fight all the way through, so that's awesome. I'm the executive director at Build Wealth Minnesota. We've been on the corner of Plymouth and Penn for the last 12 years. We provide a comprehensive financial education program. We work with about 700 families of all different incomes and walks of life, mainly low-income people of color. We help them get through this comprehensive financial education. We also coach them for up to 2 years, sometimes 5 years. We help families get into home ownership, also into rental readiness. We also have a rental readiness curriculum that we recently developed with the Family Housing Fund. We manage 4 different down payment assistance programs. We're a community development financial institution, so we have a lot of favorable loan products that we provide with credit rebuild loans, helping people going from 18% interest down to 8%. A lot of different strategies to help people break cycles of poverty to go along with the education as well. We also are a housing development. We started developing houses in 2016 through the Green Homes North program. So we've been providing some larger unit houses that are affordable here in North Minneapolis. We're engaged in the infill development process of trying to fill in these vacant lots with affordable houses for families here in Minneapolis. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Thanks for being here. Lisa, welcome.
Lisa Mears?
Yes, Lisa Mears, welcome.
Lisa Mears, I go by the pronoun she, her. I am the executive director at the Bridge for Youth, and the Bridge for Youth is a nonprofit in South Minneapolis. Been around since 1970. It was founded by 2 Catholic nuns, Sisters Rita and Marlene, who noticed a growing number of homeless and unaccompanied youth on the streets. And and now our mission is to provide runaway and homeless youth safe shelter. We have supportive housing and other supportive and therapeutic services. We assist in the prevention and resolution of family conflict and reunify whenever it's safe and possible. We do hold contracts. We're the only contract in Hennepin County for the Juvenile Diversion Alternatives Initiative. So, we are providing these supports not only for youth in Minneapolis or Hennepin County, but in the broader community as well. So I also have experience. I'm really super excited to be here and to be here in the presence of a lot of community organizers. I had the pleasure of, when I was the CEO of VEEP, to work really closely with tenant organizers as well as peer organizations in the city, in Bloomington, Richfield, and Edina, to support and advocate for the adoption of ordinances that protected tenants and as well tenants' rights, as well as preserving the naturally occurring affordable housing there. So thank you for your partnership, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Welcome. Melissa Newman, if you could introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Newman, and I have been a homeowner in the McKinley neighborhood for the last 14 years. The reason I'm interested in serving on this committee is to do my part to ensure true and fair housing. Through my own personal predatory lending experiences and advocating for my neighbors, it kind of opened up my eyes to the bigger picture of negative revitalization efforts around the city of Minneapolis. So I believe change in current housing practices are crucial and very necessary in order for us to allow greater housing opportunity. And so I felt it was necessary for me to be at the table and be a part of this committee, making recommendations and doing what's best for Minneapolis residents. So I'm excited to learn and to work with you all as well, and look forward to these next few years on this committee.
Thanks, Melissa, for being here and for your really valuable experience you bring with you. All right, Colleen O'Connor-Toberman.
Hi, everyone. I'm Colleen O'Connor-Toberman. I live in Northeast Minneapolis in Ward 1, and I'm a housing advocate and a landlord. My husband and I own 4 rental units in the city, and a lot of my professional background is in housing, both direct service as well as policy and advocacy. And I'm just really passionate about the importance of, stable and safe and affordable housing as a human right. In my day job now, I do policy and advocacy related to planning and development for an environmental organization, but I don't represent them here at this committee. And I was on the committee for the past years and felt like the work we did was important, and that this is such a big area of effort in the city right now that I'm really happy to be back for another 2 years with you.
Welcome back. Glad you're here. All right, Maggie, welcome.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie Oddie. I use she, her pronouns. I work at Hope Community on Franklin and Portland. So we provide affordable housing and then do community organizing and engagement as well. My role is in housing development and asset management. I'm here to help ensure everybody in Minneapolis has access to safe and stable housing, and I'm excited to work with and learn from all of you. So thanks.
Thanks for being here. And next is Scott Schaefer, who I know couldn't be with us today. So we'll move on to Janine Sija. Did I get that right?
Yeah, everybody will get enough practice with my last name in this meeting that you'll all be able to say it by the time we adjourn today. So let's see. So she, her pronouns. I live in the 7th Ward. I've been in Minneapolis for 3 years and then in Golden Valley prior to that. I work in real estate technology. I've worked for 10 years in the real estate technology space, developing software tools and database and other resources, primarily for realtors, for members of the National Association of Realtors. And my organization is a subsidiary of that very large trade group. And I'm not here as a representative of that group, but I've had a keen interest in housing and real estate through my professional life. And I would say I'm solidly in the category of people who were galvanized by the events of last year, both the pandemic and the civil situation, and really felt like it was time to get off the sidelines and become more engaged in a really specific way with a project that resonated with me. So for me, this is all about seeing what I can contribute and how I can support others' ideas around equity and fair housing, specifically in homeownership. I really know and understand how homeownership can transform a person and a family. So anything that we can do around down payment assistance, around financial education, all of those things, that's really important to me, as well as the whole unhoused situation and how much worse I imagine that's going to get in the coming year or two. So I think that there's historically so much to be rectified around redlining and fair housing and equity that I think it's really important for all citizens to engage in this dialogue and to try to make things better. And I'm, just kind of humbly approaching this in that spirit. And I'm really excited to learn from all of you and to collaborate on the work that we'll do. So thank you. Thank you for including me.
Thank you so very much for being here. All right, Cecil Smith, welcome back.
Thank you, Joey. Hello, everybody. Good to see some old faces and some new ones today. I'm Cecil Smith. I'm president and CEO of the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association, which represents about 1,500 members with 400,000 units of housing across the state. I'm a Minneapolis resident. I've been very engaged in housing issues and housing policy issues for a number of years. I'm very interested in systems change, especially around housing production and lowering the cost of housing production, because I believe that's the long-term sustainable solution. Pleased to work with all of you and make some progress on real change in housing.
Thanks, Cecil. Rose Tang.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much. It's been I really appreciate the opportunity to hear a little bit more about everybody, and excited to be back for a second term. I'm a Minneapolis resident in Ward 11. And in my day job, I work as a public policy director for the Metropolitan Consortium of Community Developers, which is an association of nonprofit organizations that provide affordable housing and support small businesses. Something today that just really moved me was that first public comment, Andrew, and what he said, and especially how he ended that he's looking forward to not just our allyship, but our action. And that's just something that I'm going to remember, throughout this term for myself, and hope that our work can live up to that. So thank you so much.
Yes, thanks, Rose. We have a lot to do, and I think this committee is going to do a lot of good work together. All right, last but of course not least, Annie Wells, welcome back.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Annie Wells. I use they, them pronouns. If anybody has any questions about that, let me know. I'm the Director of Housing Programs at St. Stephen's, which is a nonprofit that is working to end homelessness primarily in Hennepin County. I've been in the field of housing and homelessness for about 17 years, and I'm very passionate about ending homelessness. That's where my focus is with this work. As Brenda said, as a result of that, I want to focus on not just affordable housing, but deeply affordable housing. I believe housing is a basic human right, and that we also need to focus on the groups that are overrepresented in homelessness numbers. So BIPOC communities and queer communities. And a part of that work means actively reversing the inequities that have been intentionally put in place by our government and society that has led to where we are today. So I'm looking forward to continuing the work of this committee. This is also my second term. As Rose said, I was also moved by the first public caller holding us to taking action and not just having a more passive role. I'm looking forward to actually taking action over these next couple of years.
Great. Wow. I'm sure, like me, a lot of us are feeling pretty inspired by the collective energy and expertise and desire for positive change on housing issues in Minneapolis. So I'm really excited to be here with you all and for the work that we're going to be doing. Welcome, So next, for the next 10 minutes or so, we're going to hear some updates on some of the work that the city has done on housing issues in 2020, and then a little bit of a look ahead of what we're expecting and what is in the works for 2021. So Katie, I'll pass it over to you and your esteemed colleagues for this section.
Thanks, Joey. And maybe really quickly before we start, I did create a little PowerPoint, and for people who are on the phone, I was having trouble getting it posted to the agenda, so it will be posted after this meeting, but we'll just obviously describe what's in it. But I think it might be helpful for the staff that are typically in these meetings to just introduce ourselves as well, so you know who is on the call from the city staff side. So, and also because they're going to be talking briefly in the next section here as well. So I've already introduced myself, but I will just share a little bit more about my role at the city. So again, I'm Katie Topinka. I work for the Community Planning and Economic Development Department. CPED is our acronym, and I'm specifically in the housing division, and my role is the housing policy coordinator. So I work on a lot of the new policy development around housing that's happening in the city. I also work within our department on some policy changes to existing programs. And then I specifically work on the Stable Homes, Stable Schools program, and obviously staff this committee. So so excited to have you all as part of it. And I'm just going to ask my colleagues to also introduce themselves quickly because we're, I think, slightly behind schedule. So I'll turn it to Kelly Jones from Regulatory Services.
Hey. Hi, everyone. Excited to be back with the committee again. Excited for the new folks. I'm Kelly Jones. I'm the director of the tentative name is the Inspections Division for the City of Minneapolis. We manage all of the rental license properties in the city, from a single family unit all the way to the multi, 100+ unit buildings. I think that's all I'll say for now. And I work with Katie, who's always busy, as you can hear by her introduction. I think Lisa's the next person, and then I don't know who else is on from the city.
Yeah, I'm Lisa Smestad. I'm the manager of the Lead Hazard Control and Healthy Homes program housed in the Minneapolis Health Department. I work on ending childhood lead poisoning in the city and on other environmental pollution concerns for the insides of housing, which is also asthma. So firm belief that our housing should not make us sick.
Katie B from Reg Services, do you want to introduce yourself as well? I think you're typically in our meetings as well.
I'm Katie Benitez. I am Kelly Jones's assistant, and I am here to take notes.
Thanks, Katie, and thanks for all your help this week with making sure all the oaths got scheduled. That was a huge lift. And then we also have Robin
from
Garwood.
The mayor's office.
Yep, Andrea. Andrea Inoue from the mayor's office and Robin Garwood from Councilmember Gordon's office are here as well and attend, I think, just about every single meeting. So, Andrea, do you want to introduce yourself, and then Robin?
Sure. Hi, you guys heard from me a little bit earlier. I'm Andrea Inoue. I'm in the mayor's office. My role is the director of strategic partnerships for affordable housing. I also work some in food security as well, as those two issues often are intertwined. I deal with a lot of different affordable housing issues as they come from or come through our office. I specifically work very closely with Stable Homes, Stable Schools, and most recently with our city's Minneapolis Gap Funds for Housing program, and then the upcoming federal emergency rental assistance programs that we're receiving.
And I'm Robin Garwood. I work for Councilmember Cam Gordon. You heard from me just a little bit ago, and you heard from Cam as well. We work on a lot of the policies that the council is bringing forward on housing, but definitely not all of them. But typically, I know which council offices are working on things. So if there are questions about those issues that we're not working on, I can usually find out more.
All right. Great. So now we are going to do just a brief, very brief, high-level overview of some of the things that the city worked on in 2020 and some of the things we will be working on in 2021. And again, this is high level and doesn't encompass every single thing around housing that happened. So I just don't want to give that impression, but we just wanted to at least highlight some of the things that happened over the last year and then some of the things that we know are going to be happening this year. And just wanted to set this frame for all of you to help you understand kind of just some of the things that are already going on and where you may have opportunities to weigh in. And so I'm going to talk about a lot of these things, and Kelly and Lisa and Robin are also going to talk about a few of them. So, can you see, is this working?
No,
Yeah,
Katie,
we can see.
Oh. Can folks outside
I
the
can
see? I cannot. It says
No, I cannot see.
I can't.
Okay, let me, oh, you know what? Let me try this again. Okay, sorry. I'm gonna try it one more time.
Yes, we can see now. Thanks.
Okay, and I'm gonna make it slideshow. Okay, you can see this?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So in 2020, there was obviously, like everything else, our work changed pretty dramatically to respond to COVID. So I'm going to actually just start with the emergency housing assistance because that's already been mentioned several times on this call. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but the city did early on in the pandemic make $3 million available to assist low-income renter households with rent and utility payments. And this was kind of the first, one of the first emergency housing assistance programs out of the gate. I think some of the issues with it have already been highlighted in terms of eligibility and things like that, that we are now learning from as we're starting to work on additional rental assistance programs. But it was able to assist 1,600 households. So just wanted to mention that here. Obviously, this committee last year spent a lot of time talking about homelessness response, and obviously from everyone's introductions, that's something folks are really passionate about on this committee, and so I anticipate we'll spend a lot more time digging into this. But just specifically as it relates to the COVID response, the city did receive funds, federal funds, to be able to invest in new shelters and additional street outreach services, as well as rapid rehousing. And so there are a number of new shelters that have already opened, and some will be adding additional capacity over the next coming weeks. The city did invest $13.4 million to help make those shelter projects happen, along with, as I mentioned, investing in additional homeless street outreach services, as well as providing hygiene support at encampments through the city health department. And those shelters, if anybody is interested in learning more, we can certainly do more detail, but one was Homeward Bound, which is owned and operated by American Indian Community Development Corporation, that has 50 beds that are targeted for our Native American community. And then Avivo Villages, or indoor villages, which is tiny structures within a larger shelter. That one did open at the end of December and is, but not fully open yet in terms of capacity. It will have 100 units once it's fully open. Right now they're at I believe 16, although it may be more than that. That was the initial opening amount, and we can certainly get a more of an update on that. And then in addition to those two things related to COVID response, the city also increased its investment in legal services for people facing eviction. And so there is additional money that we provided to legal aid through some of our COVID response dollars to ensure that we can help prepare for when the eviction moratorium ends and provide legal services to people both before and then after the moratorium ends. And then I'm just going to kind of run through some of these quickly. Budget changes. Some of these have already been discussed, But with last year's budget, the Housing Advisory Committee did weigh in on a number of these items. And this council and mayor did approve ongoing funding for Stable Homes, Stable Schools, which has been mentioned here several times. That's a program that provides rental assistance for families with children in MPS schools that are experiencing homelessness. So it's now a permanent program. It had been a pilot, and there's $2.2 million a year for that program. There was also $15 million in the budget for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, including an additional $1 million in ongoing funding. And that program is how we invest in affordable housing in the city. And then there was also $2 million in ongoing funding for home ownership, and specifically targeted at ending disparities in home ownership. Again, last year we had our Affordable Housing Trust Fund selections that will assist in creating or preserving 952 units of housing in the city. 907 of those are new construction. 907, sorry, I sort of stumbled over that, and 45 are preservation. And 170 of those units are what we consider deeply affordable, so affordable to people earning 30% of area median income. And then 471 are affordable to households earning 50% of area median income. We are increasing, trying to increase reaching that deeply affordable level. And then this committee last year heard about changes to the Minneapolis Homes program. That is our ownership programs. And there were a number of changes adopted by the council last year that are aimed at better trying to close the gap in home ownership between white households and BIPOC households. And one of the changes that was implemented is that we used to serve at incomes up to 115% of area median income. Now it's limited to those earning 80% of area median income or less. And one of the big things you'll see in a coming slide are about implementation of those changes that's happening this year, which is going to be a big undertaking. The TOPA, tenant opportunity to purchase, was mentioned earlier by Councilmember Gordon. So last year we worked with an outside organization to do a study on what potential opportunity to purchase policy options could be for the city of Minneapolis. And that study is done. And so that was a big part of the work last year, but it laid out 3 potential pathways for an opportunity to purchase policy. And I should, this will be posted. I can also send links to the committee of a number of these items so that you can read more about them if you would like to, since we're going through them quite quickly. And then Kelly, these last 2 bullets were regulatory services focus.
Hi, everyone. So the 2, quickly, like Katie said, this year in 2020, we passed several renter protection ordinances and also begun the implementation of them, including limited screening criteria, a security deposit cap, a renter relocation assistance, and then advanced notice of sale. And so we continue to work on making sure that the word gets out about those so that renters know their rights. This year, again, as part of our COVID response, we ramped up our virtual inspections program and got out to do rental licensing inspections virtually. We still did interior inspections on situations where there was a really priority for us to be inside, but to both honor the health and safety of the renters as well as our inspectors, we came up with a really creative way to maintain health and safety during this COVID period. So again, with Katie, I think we can provide information on both the virtual inspections as well as the renter protection ordinance implementation online. I'm gonna just kind of leave it at that, Katie.
All right, and I can't see everyone right now, so if there are questions, can somebody let me know?
Brenda has her hand up, I think. Brenda, do you have your hand up?
Oh, yes, I do. Okay, so I just want to go on record again about the area median income. Okay, we are moving in the right direction. You are getting the deeply in place but you're going by the area median income, which should be going by the person's income. Because if a person is only making $12 an hour at McDonald's, how is that person going to afford deeply affordable housing based on the area median income? Okay, so I just want to go on record again about that. I still struggle with that area median income situation that is being put in place here, because you're taking 7 counties and averaging that out. And when you have a person only making $12 an hour, how are they still going to afford 30% of their area median income? So I just wanted to go on record on that again. Okay.
Thank you, Brenda.
Everybody.
And I think it might be helpful at some point I know we had talked about maybe having some separate sessions to talk a little bit more about some of the housing development questions last year and didn't quite get to that. I think it probably would be helpful to dig into that piece more at some point, because I know that's come up a lot in the committee last year and obviously still continues to be something to dig into. So thank you, Brenda. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next slide. Then just a couple of other things that happened last year in terms of new policies. Councilmember Gordon mentioned there was a change to the emergency shelter ordinance to allow different sizes and different areas in response to a lot of the things we were seeing and trying to get new shelters created. The SRO ordinance was not adopted last year, but the process did start. And again, Councilmember Gordon mentioned that. That's trying to change our code to allow for single room occupancy type of housing. And there's Brenda and Scott Schaefer, who isn't here today. They are 2 members from the committee who are on a work group providing some guidance to the staff team that's working on that ordinance. I already mentioned the updates to Minneapolis Homes. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention is the Housing Advisory Committee did weigh in last year on a community preference policy. That's a policy where it currently applies to the Minneapolis Homes program for people who currently reside in specific neighborhoods that are identified in the policy, or who were displaced from those neighborhoods because of the foreclosure crisis or other reasons, have a preference. So 50% of the homes that we're funding through Minneapolis Homes, 50% of them will have a preference for people in those geographies. And it's a policy designed at trying to prevent involuntary displacement or allow people to maybe return to a neighborhood that they were previously displaced from. So I'm going to move on if there are no questions. So in 2021, these are some of the things that we know will be happening in the city. And these we just want to make sure you were aware of as the committee is trying to think about what it wants to work on. We will definitely be asking for input on a number of these things. So we have spent a lot of time talking about emergency housing assistance programs today, so I won't go into too much detail, but Jeff already shared that the city is getting a direct allocation of money from the federal government to create a new emergency rental assistance program. We are working with jurisdictional partners to figure out how we will implement that. We do hope that we can allow it to serve people who are living in public housing or receive other types of rental assistance, but we are waiting on some additional guidance on that, as Andrea mentioned earlier. There will be, implementation of some of the programmatic changes I already mentioned. We are going to look at applying the community preference policy to additional programs, including some of our rental programs. We are going to continue efforts around homelessness response. The city is hiring a couple of new staff we are excited that will improve our ability to respond to people who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness. And I'm happy to go into more detail on that when we have more time. And then obviously we have a number of ongoing programs that we'll continue to work on. And then I'm going to let Lisa talk about, Lisa and Kelly have the next 4 bullets here. So Lisa.
So we'll be presenting you an update on the lead abatement program for the city of Minneapolis as to what we've done and what we're planning on doing with the $5 million lead hazard control grant over the next few years. We are also going to be developing a lead poisoning elimination plan for the city of Minneapolis over the next year, and this committee will be one of the committees that will bring it before for comment. And I think that, my other one was on the bottom, kind of about water damaged surfaces. So we're coordinating with housing inspections to write an ordinance that would be appropriate for dealing with mold in properties, which is something we've heard needs to be addressed.
Thanks, Lisa. Again, as mentioned before, we've been heavily involved in discussing the single room occupancy ordinance, doing the research and policy development. We anticipate that will move forward in 2021, as Councilmember Gordon and others have specified. We recently, at the end of really just starting 2 weeks ago, we combined 2 major divisions that handle rental housing in the city of Minneapolis, the Housing Inspections Division and the Fire Inspections Division, into one division. So we'll be doing a lot of work around making sure that this new division is responsive to the needs of renters and property owners, and making sure that we have the best quality, and dignified habitable housing as possible. And so there's a lot to do around that as well. Okay.
And then
Katie, you wanna?
I'll touch on these last 2, and then want to make sure Robin has a chance to chime in as well. So I already mentioned the opportunity to purchase policy study that happened last year. We anticipate there will be more work around a policy this year. Rent stabilization came up earlier in our conversation in terms of the need for a charter amendment. The council did approve funding for a study of the economic impacts of rent stabilization that I think was alluded to earlier. Kira, the Center for Urban and Regional Affairs at the University of Minnesota, is currently finishing up that study and will likely be presenting it to council in late February. And so that is on the agenda for this year. And then Robin, any last few things you want to chime in with quickly?
Sure. I'll just reiterate that we are also working on eviction protections. So both just cause and pre-eviction notification. There is a lot of interest in finally passing the public housing levy and using that to support MPHA and maintaining and building additional public housing in Minneapolis, aided by the changes that we just made to the built form stuff as it came through that incentivize larger units, family size units in duplexes and triplexes if they're affordable and if they're public. And then the last thing that I'm seeing that I think we haven't talked about here already today is finishing the work on the maximum occupancy ordinance to make sure that we're no longer defining people's families in sort of an obsolete way, letting people live together the way that they choose to.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you. I know we still have a few things to get to, and one we have to get to, which is adopting the calendar. So I want to make sure we have time for that. But Andrea, sorry, I didn't give you a chance. I don't know if you have anything you wanted to add in terms of planned activities.
Just super quickly, I'll add, since we've recently wrapped up the 2021 budget, we will soon be starting to talk about the 2022 budget. And so we will make sure to engage with this committee around the affordable housing components of that as well.
All right. And so I know that was a lot of information, but we just wanted to kind of lay the groundwork for you so you understood some of the things that were planned to be happening. I will send that out via email and also make sure it's linked to the agenda for anybody who was on the phone, and can send links where you can read more about these items as well. So more to come on that. Okay, so Joey, sorry, I'll go back to you. Or Colleen.
Yeah, I think Colleen, and I might just make a suggestion here that we had allotted about 15 minutes for talking through our work plan as a committee, but I would suggest that maybe we push that off to our next month's meeting. We just heard a lot about what's going on and what the city already has in the works. So that would just be my suggestion, that we push that to our next meeting for our committee to have a chance to develop our work plan. So then, yeah, Colleen, if you want to go to the calendar piece.
Sure. So we need to accept or approve our slate of meeting dates, which is the second Thursday of every month from 3 to 5 p.m. So do I have a motion to approve those meeting dates?
Yep. And Colleen, if I could just interrupt quickly, there are 2 months where we can't meet on the second Thursday because there are holidays or it's another date of special significance. So what I had proposed, which was linked to the agenda, I can actually just share it here again, was in May, it would be the first Thursday, so May 6th. And in November, where there's also a conflict, it would be the third Thursday, so November 18th. So those 2 months are different. Just wanted to flag that.
Great, thank you. All right, so with that in front of all of us, do I have a motion to accept the dates that are all on the screen in front of us?
So moved. This is Cecil.
Great, thanks, Cecil. Any seconds?
I'll second.
Melissa
Joey.
Newman, I'll second it.
Great.
All right, and we'll have to take a roll on this.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
All right, Karina Buller.
Yes.
Bruce Brunner.
Yes.
Joey Dobson.
Yes.
Colleen Ebinger.
Yes.
Jeff Horwich.
Yes.
Chloe Jackson.
Yes.
Belinsky Jaycox.
Yes.
Kimmons.
Yes.
Oh, okay, there you are. Charlotte Kinsley.
Yes.
Liliana Latran Garcia.
Yes.
Brenda Marcos.
Yes.
David McGee.
Yes.
Lisa Mears.
Yes.
Melissa Newman.
Yes.
Colleen O'Connor Toberman.
Yes.
Maggie Oddie.
Yes.
Janine still here?
Oh, did you call me? Sorry, yes.
Oh,
I didn't,
no problem.
The sound cut out. I'm sorry. Yes.
Cecil Smith.
Aye.
Rose Tang.
Yes.
Annie Wells.
Yes.
There are 20 ayes, so that's adopted. Thank you. I will send out all of those via Outlook as well.
Great.
Great.
Thanks for doing that. Okay, and then, sorry, in terms of our bylaws, sorry, on this one, I'm just trying to remember, are we just going over them? I know we only have 5 minutes left here. Right now.
Yeah.
We don't need to approve them, right? We're just reminding everyone and for new people.
Yeah, I think it would be good to just, they're not that long. We can just go over them quickly, but with kind of with the plan of making sure we're all on the same page about what we're going to do for leadership selection at our next meeting. So Katie is sharing her screen. So it's the second page. The document is linked to the agenda, and the first page is just sort of a committee overview. So this is page 2 of that. So these are what we adopted. As I mentioned earlier, the number 1 here is about our leadership, was intentionally left somewhat open to different, numbers or roles of a leadership team. As I think we've discussed, Colleen and I have been serving as co-chairs. Brenda Marcos has been serving as a vice chair or kind of a co-chair, and Scott Schaefer has been a secretary. Again, we adopted these bylaws with the idea that they could change. So, but we do want to have, a couple, 2, 3, 4 leaders available to work with staff to facilitate the meetings and steer and make sure that the agenda is in place and do a little bit of extra work in between meetings. So that's number 1. Number 2 is just that we meet monthly. And again, it's left open, but we have decided, at least for now, that we would meet monthly for 2 hours. Did someone have something to add there? Okay. Quorum for us to take official action on anything. A quorum, for all the reasons we need quorum, is half of our current membership. We have 21 members, so a quorum is 11 for us. Members are expected to attend all regularly scheduled meetings to the best of their ability. I would say in my role as a co-chair, it's nice to have a heads up when possible if someone's not able to join. We know things happen and don't expect 100% attendance from everyone, but we definitely found that meetings were more meaningful the more people who could come and engage. So we just respectfully request, I think the staff, it's helpful for staff for them to know who's going to be present. There were a couple of meetings in 2019 and 2020 where we did not have a quorum. At least for the foreseeable future, we'll be meeting virtually. So hopefully we don't have some of the barriers, but we certainly have new barriers. We already talked about the staff that support our committee. That's number 5. And Katie mentioned that we give an annual report to the committee. Structure is a little different right now in City Council, but we give an annual report to City Council. Our meetings are open to the public. Non-members have to join by phone rather than through Teams, like through the whole functionality of Teams for now, but we'll see how long we're doing it virtually like this. Agendas are set by, this says the chair, but really it's the leaders with committee staff, and this just gives the time that they're posted. This number 9 is also left sort of open. We'll follow an agreed upon decision making process. Maybe next meeting we can just go over how we've done voting and decisions when we've taken official action in the past. Then just bylaws can be amended by a 2/3 vote, and some details about voting. As Katie mentioned earlier, in this virtual meeting time, we have to do all votes by roll call, as we've done several times already this meeting. So we've got that down. So it's 4:59. We had talked about maybe just saying we will plan to vote on a leadership team at our February meeting, but is there any discussion or comments right now? So I'll just put that out as the default. Would there be concerns from the group about voting on our leadership team at the February meeting? Folks could email their interest around to the group in the meantime, or we could just accept nominations at our February meeting. If people have concerns about that, we can do it another way, but just wanted to throw that out as kind of for starters an option. And I know we're getting tight, so. Any concerns about that plan?
Sounds fine to me.
And I would say any of us, who have been serving in these roles would be more than happy to chat offline with anyone interested. And I'm sure staff would too, about if anyone has questions. But for now, why don't, if everyone can consider whether you would like to put your name forward for a leadership role, and we will plan to discuss those and plan to take a vote at our February meeting, which is February 11th, I believe. All right, it's 5 o'clock. We did it. Well, we didn't do it, but we did what we could do. So good to see and hear from all of you. I'm really excited about the work that we're all going to do together this year.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to meet you all.
Have a good night.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.